So when you break it down, you can look. It's kind of nice the way they have it colored here. Access modifiers in red. You got the return type in green, method name, and then the parameter list, whatever you're passing in with the data type. And then your method body, and again, that's where you do your code at, is in between those squiggly brackets, curly brackets, and your method there. So it's a nice little color breakdown of all the different parts of the method, our method signature. So a couple definitions here. Access modifier specifies the method's access type, how it can be accessed in your application. C#, there are 3 types of access modifiers. Public, all methods have access to the code. Private, only the current method has access to the code. And protected, it's only available within the same class or subclass of that class. So private is open to everybody, everything. Private is very protected to where it can't do much outside of your class. And protected, it's not as open to public, but it's not as private either. So there are some other things outside your class that can use it, but not everything can use it. I don't think we use protected in any of our labs.
Will we ever start using public, like, soon?
When we start doing classes,
Okay,
we'll have,
cool.
because
Then we need the method to be usable.
yeah,
elsewhere.
because we'll set up our class and our object and everything in our class, and to use it in our code, we have to
Okay.
have it public to be able to use outside that class.
All right.
Return types, the return type specifies the data type, and again, that can be anything from a string to an int to a double to a float to a bool. The value returned to the method, the return type is void, the method returns null. That means if there is no return, you won't have a data type, you'll have void instead of an actual data type. In C#, the return type again can be int, void, double, string, and so forth. And again, if you have no return, it will be void. If you have some kind of return in your data, you got to use one of the data types we've been working with.
What does so forth do?
What's that?
Nothing.
Oh, so forth.
Yeah, what does so forth do?
The method name just indicates the name of the user-defined method that the user invokes. For example, factorial here in this. Most of our labs have been kind of telling us what to call our methods, but they should be pretty straightforward and kind of describe what that method is going to do. They are camel case or Pascal case. Hey, that was your fault for bringing it up in the first place. So the method name, Pascal case, kind of described as something that the method's actually going to do.
Mr. G.
Yep.
I was doing some reading on methods, and I think I mentioned this to you before, but I heard like it's common practice to start a method name with a verb. You told me like you hadn't heard of that.
You'll see a lot of them like get this,
Yeah,
and
get this, do this,
set
something.
that, yeah. And you see a lot of them like that. But then it depends on what the application actually is doing. A lot of when you're pulling things from the databases and that's when you'll see the gets and the sets and that kind of stuff. You'll see like validation checks will have the method name however you know it, like check address or validate address kind of a thing.
Okay,
And
yeah.
the method body, it refers to the line of code that describes the duties executed by the method during its execution. It's kept in braces, and that's just what the code is that it's going to run when you call the method. Parameter list, it's a comma-separated list of the input parameters defined within the open parentheses. It's preceded by their data type. If there are no parameters, an empty parentheses must be used. And there's 3 types of parameters. There's value parameter, reference parameter, and output parameter. We'll take a look at those on Tuesday when we get back from vacation. We've been just kind of doing some basic methods at the moment. They got a little bit more down here. I'm not going to go into it. It's talking about methods. There's a static void print. Why is it got void on there?
Because it doesn't return anything.
Yeah, there's no return value to it. And then the method call. So that was nice. I found that last night looking for some stuff. I thought that was nice how they put it in the colors and kind of broke it down for you.
I do have one question because I've seen it pop up a few times.
Yep.
Like on button click, and I saw it down there. In the argument list, what does args do?
It's some parameters that can get passed back, and they
Okay.
just happen to call it args. And so, like I said, you can call it anything you want, and they just call it args there.
Okay.
And then they're using that string array.
Okay, is it
there.
kind of like foobar? where,
Yeah,
like, okay,
something
so
like
it's
that.
A filler word.
Yep.
Okay.
That's just what they happen to use in Visual Studio. I believe that's.
Yeah, because I know
How
like
they have it
button
set up.
clicks have args e or something.
Yeah, and E's like an event kind of
Yeah.
a thing most often. So just wanted to go over that one more time just to try and get this method signature. And the method signature is just all these parts put together is considered the method signature. Just trying to get you comfortable when you hear that term, what you're going to be looking for, the different parts of it. Access modifier, return data type, the method name, and the parameters. Just if you're going to be doing development and coding, you got to kind of get familiar with those terminologies. That's that. I'll go ahead and get started on the code demo. Again, creating my project. I'm using the Windows Forms app.net framework. If you don't use that .NET framework, you'll have issues trying to get it open. That's not what we're using. We're not using the plain ones, and here we're using that .NET framework. So let me get going on here. Just call it method example 1. Guess I can go ahead and stick that in my example folder again. Call it method examples. Create that. Got my form. I'm going to put a couple text boxes on, some labels, and a button. So.
One of these days, I'm just gonna make an unhinged app where like the text box and buttons are just all over. the
Make sure you have your tab order set well.
page. Oh, I'm gonna make a tab order the worst part.
My 2 text boxes.
The unfortunate reality is that as I get more knowledgeable in things, I become more unhinged with it.
I can destroy the world.
Basically.
Make sure you don't say your name on this video that I'm recording in case any prospective employers go out and hear any of that.
It's just a prank employers.
Couple labels.
No. Don't do it.
So again, got to go through and name everything. Make sure we use the proper naming convention. I know on this last hands-on test we did, it took points off for not using the normal or the proper naming convention. And I know I did see a couple people lose some points for that. So kind of make sure you focus on that. Label, name, text. So I'm going to do, first text box you'll enter your name, second one you'll do your age. On our button click we'll do some age verification stuff. And then in that label 3 down there we'll have it print out our message and stuff that we want to use. So in case you're wondering where I'm going with this. So label 1. And you can have it say whatever you want. I'm just going to say,
What was the second text box?
it's going to be age.
Age, okay. And this is we're gonna do like a login.
This is just like a name check
Oh.
or an age check kind of thing. Next one will be the login, and then finally, last one will be like adding 3 numbers and then averaging them out using a couple different methods.
I solely ask for naming, so I can name the button stuff.
Yeah.
So I'll call you Alt.
I don't want any kind of label there. Of course, there's no name on the text box, or no visible name unless we want to put one in there as a hint kind of a thing. Text, let's call it name. Text, call it age. And then my button, BTN. Call it verify. Verify. You can name it whatever you want. I call it verify just because we're going to be verifying an age. So that's the basic setup of it there. I'm going to enter our name, enter an age, click our verify button, have it do some stuff for us. So, of course, get our button wired up. All we have to do is double click on it. There's our button verify click event there. And of course, as we can see, it is a method because it's set to private. Void, it's not returning anything. Our button name there. And then it's passing in an object with the name of sender and event args with the variable name of E. Usually E, when you're doing lowercase e like that, some kind of event that's going to happen or going on. We're not really coding to that, so I'm not going to worry too much about it. So I'm going to start out by creating my method. And I'm going to we'll give it private. Since it's just going to be used in this class. And we're not going to return anything for this one, so
location of the method, the right method, is it best to start like above the button click or below it?
it doesn't really matter. I like to put mine above it just because it runs as you click the button. When you click the button, it's just going to go into the button click event, get what you need, and I usually start from the bottom and then jump it back up to the top. But you can put it anywhere you want. You want to put it underneath the button click event, you're more than welcome to.
That kind of makes sense too, because like in the real world, like if someone had to alter a method, that way they're all at the top, because the data entry probably isn't going to change.
Not usually, yeah.
Yeah.
Usually that'll all stay the same. Usually you're going to modify your methods in one way or another. I mean, you may,
Every once in a while.
what I've had to do in the last few jobs I had was like, you'll have some kind of form and something like that. You may have to add another text box or two and some minor things like that. And then you have to go back into the method and add all the coding for getting the data out of that method or that text box you add and stuff like that. So Liam Hutton, I'm using void on my method name. Why am I using void there?
Won't return.
There you go. It's not going to return anything. And then I'm going to just call it age check. I am going to pass 2 parameters into it. I'm going to do a string called name. And then I'm going to do an int called age. And if we wanted to do more, we could do more. Of course, we got to put our curly brackets after our parentheses for our body of our method. So now we have our method signature here, and I'll go ahead and put a little note there. That's our method signature. Access modifier is private. Our return data type is void. The name of our method is age check. Starts with a capital A and a capital C for Pascal casing. Got our parentheses here. That's showing our parameter list that we're sticking in here. Now let's start coding out our code. So I know, we'll do an if statement and say if name is equal to blank. So if they don't put a name in, we're gonna put our label display result dot text. And again, when we do our labels or our text boxes, we always have to put that dot text behind it to get that value. And I'm just gonna say, please enter your age.
Wouldn't we want it to be enter your name if name is blank?
Oh yeah, I guess that makes sense, doesn't it? Thank you. Glad someone's paying attention. Then I'll do another if here and say if age is less than or equal to 0,
Please enter a valid age.
yes, LPL, my display result text again. Please enter a valid age. So now we're doing two if statements. We've been doing ifs, else's, and some nested ifs. This is just going to check one first, then check the other. And the second one, I'm going to do some else if statements with it.
Greater than or equal to 100 or something?
Actually, less than 18.
18, okay.
I'm just seeing if you're legal age at this point. So if age is less than 18, I'll do my label result text again. I'm gonna use string interpolation here. I like string interpolation so much more than having to try and convert everything as we go along. Sorry. I'm gonna put the name in here. You must be at least 18 years old to enter. I'll do another else if statement. Everybody doing good, keeping up?
To what? Location of what?
You,
Be at least 18 years old
to enter. You can put whatever message you want. Everybody good? So my next else if statement will say age is greater than or equal to 18, and we're doing greater than or equal, and that's another thing I noticed on some your labs and tests is for doing a range you gotta use that equal sign to make sure you're picking up the number. So like if I did less than 18 and greater than 18,
18 just wouldn't be.
yeah, if I hit 18, it wouldn't pick it up because we're not equaling 18 anywhere. So I think on that grade point average one, and maybe the hurricane wind speed one, I noticed that coming up a couple times, that you've got to make sure you catch all those values, and by doing an equal sign, you catch either the high or low end of the range, whatever one you're trying to check for. So I'll say less than or equal to 18, and, because I want both of these statements to be true, age is less than 21. And the reason I'm not doing an equal 21 here, because usually 21 is the legal age. I don't, if they are 21, that's fine, it's going to pass. I'm checking to see if they're under 21. And I will say LBL, my result, dot text equals, and again, string interpolation. Welcome. I'll use the name again so it prints it out for us. You are old enough to enter, but you may have to show ID. When I was younger, they used to have, I don't know, nightclubs or bars or whatever that would have bands playing, and they'd have a section for under 21. If you,
Nowadays, they just put an X on your hand.
is that what it is?
Yeah, but it doesn't work 'cause people go in the bathroom and wash them off.
Yeah. So yeah, you used to have an under 21 section, so you could be 18 and get in, but you had to sit over in a certain area where you couldn't
Be near
get
the
served
bar or
drinks,
anything.
yeah, or anything like that. I saw the Red Hot Chili Peppers before they became famous one night like that.
Really?
Old place called Mississippi Nights down on the
Oh, I know
landing.
Mississippi
yeah.
Nights,
yeah.
A lot of my friends were in shows out there, actually.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it was a big popular club until landing started going down and stuff.
Yeah.
So now that I'm checking to see, that's my alarm to get up.
Yeah, mine too. I didn't know. Why did I have an alarm for 8:45?
So then I'm going to use an else statement here at the end. And this is just a catch-all for ages over 21.
And isn't that like pretty common practice that you want to try to find the things that aren't going to be the catch-all, or like you want the else to be kind of like the default?
Yeah, the else is, I call it the catch-all because you do your conditional checks up top, and if it doesn't hit any of those, it falls down into that else statement, and that catches anything that didn't get picked up by your if or your if-else statements.
I got you.
So I just call it a catch-all. I'm sure there's a better
Proper, yeah.
technical name for it. And then I'll do my result text again. And then I'll use my string interpolation. How do we do string interpolation? $sign quotation mark. Welcome. You are old enough, ENOUGH, to enter. So we have our code pretty much complete, at least for our method. You can see our method's a ugly green, and I'm surprised it's not telling us that it's declared but not used, or it's named but not used. Yeah, Liam.
So referring to like the last lab on chapter 6. So basically, for this, since you're gonna log in right here,
Well, I got the next one I got will be a login like the bank one. So
Yeah.
So I'll do that next, and then hopefully that'll answer some of your login questions and that for it. So, okay. So now we have our code done, we have our method set up, our method signature there, and now we gotta call our method. But to get our data in, and like I said yesterday, first thing I like to do when I get in my button clicks is set up how I get my data.
Variables.
Yeah. Set your variables up to get that data and store it until you need it. So there's my string to get my username. I'm getting my username out of that text box. The text box here that I created. It's called text name. I go over here. I'm declaring my data type as a string. Username is my variable name, and our variable, as you can see, we're using camel case here because our U is lowercase and the N is uppercase, so that's camel casing there. And then I'm just assigning it the value that I'm getting out of that text box. So now my username variable will have any value that's entered in the text box. Next one I need to get is my age. I'm going to call it user age. And then I'm just going to get that out of my text box. But there's an issue here. Anybody know what the issue is? I have to convert it. Yes, correct.
Are you gonna use N16 today?
For you, I will.
Hell yeah.
It's okay to be wrong. I mean, you can use 32.
I could use 64 even.
So why are we, is it because like,
No, I got two at 128.
so is, why are we converting it?
Through memory
Because anytime we're getting values out of these text boxes, they're strings. And we want our age to be an integer, and because these are strings, they won't jive together. They won't talk to each other. So since we want our user age to be an integer, we got to convert our text box data into an integer
So why are we using those 16 bits?
to make Matt happy.
Yeah.
So since we've been using it most of the time, I'll leave it at 32 then for you.
Alright, make him happy. I was confused.
You don't need to change it because of me.
Here, let's get really crazy, and I'll make it 64.
Whoa, whoa, whoa,
Well,
whoa.
I broke it.
I'm not changing it.
Now you're going to war.
So yeah, you get a couple choices for your integer size you want.
Would it like, I guess like in industry practice, like if you know the data that you're parsing isn't going to need more, like you would just set it to whatever you would need, I guess. Like if 16 will be enough.
Yeah, and it saves memory space
Yeah,
and that in it.
cache it.
So yeah,
Okay.
so there's our text boxes, getting our values from our text box. And then now the next thing we need to do is our method, what they call our method call.
You got to use the cooler word. It's invocation.
Invocation.
Yeah, you have to
Yeah.
invoke it.
When you go to a job and really hear it said that, let me know because.
Oh yeah, no, I bet they all call it call.
Yeah. The method call, it's easier to remember, easier to say for me. Invocation.
I'm gonna say I'm a
Method
code wizard.
invocation.
I invoke method.
Yeah, there you go. You invoke the method. So then we're going to just call our method. What do we call our method up here again? Age check. So we'll do age check. And it's saying up here, we said we need two parameters, one called name and one called age. So we're going to pass in our user name and our user age. And hopefully now this should run when we try and run it. So So let's give it a shot here and try and run it. My form, I'll put my name in. My age, I'll say, my wife says I act like I'm a 15-year-old, so let's put 15 in and see what happens with our verification. Sorry, Doug Eagleman, you must be at least 18 years old to enter. So what if we change that to 18?
Like every 15-year-old.
Yeah, try to sneak in. Welcome, Doug Eagleman. You are old enough to enter, but I may have to show ID. Then they look at my ID and they'll say, dang, you're actually 52. You look good for 18. If we do 23, welcome, Doug Eagleman. You are old enough to enter. So there we kind of hit all of our if else statements. What happens if we leave the name blank? The name blank, because it left the age, and that's where you kind of catch some of that. It didn't pick it up. So let's, I broke it now.
Boss isn't going to be happy about that.
Nope. So now I need to go and fix my code and get it all working right. So let's do an else if and see if that will get us fixed up and make the boss happy. Still breaking it.
Would this be a time to set a breakpoint?
There we go. And I probably should do if name is blank and or age is up there just to make it clean. So let's put a value in there. You can see my age is 21 down here. My name is blank, so it should drop in there. And there's the notice. So that seemed to work that way. Let's run it without the debugger.
The age.
Please enter your name.
The age as well.
The age.
Yeah, we didn't add there's no, like.
Set my age up here at 0.
You did for name, so it's highlighted in red, but like, we need like one for the age also.
Well, it's in red because I got the debugger dot there.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying, what's highlighted in red. What we need to do for age also, I think.
Well, if I walk through it with my debugger on, let's see how we want to do this. Yeah, so we'll do 8. We'll put my name in, and we'll do verify age. And there's where it breaks right there. Input string was not in correct format.
It was like, because there was nothing in there.
Int user age. So let's do something like this. And then we can take that int off of there. Let's stop it and try and run it.
Hey, Mr. G, for some reason my like my debugging windows don't pop up. Where would I open those?
I believe it's under. Got it running?
Because I checked a view and I'm not seeing like a debug window, but under debug I also don't. Oh, I see it. Never mind. Maybe
Got it.
performance profiler.
No. Let me try and. We just looked at it yesterday on somebody's. You're looking for local is what it ends up being. I think debug windows. Try debugging in that Windows drop down, see if you have something that says local up there.
Yeah, I do locals.
Yeah, click on that and
Okay, there we
it
go.
should do it in the bottom there for you. Oops. So now if I enter my name, it's still breaking. I thought I had that fixed last night when I was playing around with this.
Work on it at home.
All right, to get back at it, I figured out what my issue was, and I had it down here where I was getting user data. I was converting my string to an integer, but when it would come in, my string was blank, and because of that, it couldn't set the integer properly. So I do an if down here now, an if integer try parse. I pass my text box in and I have it come out at user age. User age is an integer. Probably remove that.
Nah, I keep the integer.
I think I can comment it out here and put it
Oh,
in
do
here.
like yeah, you
Yeah.
do that.
So I could do that, make it a little more happy. I could leave it if I wanted it that way. But now it will catch if I put in an empty string, it'll convert it into an int, give it the value of 0, and now I can run my if statement like I had it originally. So let's run this and take a look. So I can enter my name now. Spell it right. And then my age is blank, so please enter your age. Old enough to enter because I don't do a very good job checking on my if else statements and that, but anyhow, you get the gist on it. And like Liam had asked earlier, on when I call my method down here where it says username and user age, and up here I'm passing it name and age. Doesn't matter how you name those, it's just saying pass in a string, pass in an integer, string and an integer, and put it in these values up here and just pass it through. So that's why it's named differently. You can name it whatever you want as long as the data types match up. Yeah, and I think that's where a lot of people get confused on passing methods through, is the naming of it starts to kind of throw people off. So let's do another one.
So how are you gonna how is like login?
Yeah, that's what I'm going to do next, is a login one. So to keep all my projects under my same solution, I go find that solution method example 101 project over here in the Solution Explorer. If you don't have your Solution Explorer up, you can go to View, and there should be a Solution Explorer selection here. Control-Alt-L. Right click on that solution method examples 1 of 1 project. Go to Add, New Project. I want another Windows form again. I'm going to call this one Login Example. And this one, it's going to kind of be the same way. A couple text boxes. A button. labels. So I'll do. Please enter name. I want to go back to that other one real quick. Just kind of explain something. Oh, I'm in the wrong one. So even though we're passing two variables in and we're usually just printing out our names, we are still using that other variable to do our age check up in here. So just because we're not seeing it printed out to the screen doesn't mean we're not actually using that variable. So I didn't know if anybody caught on with that or had a question about that. I just wanted to bring it to your attention that we're passing two in, even though we're only printing one out to the screen, we are using both of them to do a name and age check kind of a thing. So. Please enter name, please enter, I'm going to have them enter a PIN number with the name. Anybody know what PIN stands for?
Personal identifier number.
Yeah, personal identification number, something like that. Label 3, we're just gonna not have anything there. I think I need to name that too, label. Naming convention for label is LBL. And text. LBL, name text. LBL result. I don't want text on that. Got my text box. Name. PIN. So that's pretty much it for the setup for our login. I think later on, for some reason, we use this bank one a couple times in these labs.
I actually have a question.
Yep.
For this bank one. Okay, so with like the methods, you say it accepts something that's like a decimal or an integer or something like that, but it's not asking me to return anything.
Okay.
So does that like I don't know if
So when it says
it's valid to
when
make
it
a
says
private
when
key?
it says it accepts something, that means it's taking a parameter in. So if it accepts something, that should be a parameter.
Okay.
If it says it's returning something, then you got to decide what data type you're going to return. I don't think they tell you exactly what data types to return.
I actually did void on all of them and it still worked fine.
What's that?
I actually did void on all of them in the bank account one and it worked fine.
Better read the syllabus though and make sure it doesn't say.
Yeah, if it doesn't tell you to return a value, can you still return one anyway?
You can, but
I don't think it said really return anything, it just says like what to do. with
yeah,
it.
it's easier to say void. So let me take a look at the. So we got setup done. Got a couple labels. Got a couple text boxes. Got my button. Double click on the button to get it wired up, ready to code. So I am going to call my method login, and what do I need to start out my method signature with?
Access modifier.
Yeah, and what do we want our access modifier to be? Private. And I am not returning anything, so this will be a void. And my method name is login. And like our lab, I will take in 2 parameters, even though mine are going to be a little bit different, being a string of a name and a string of a pin. Put my curly brackets on there for my body. You see it's already doing a try. Eventually we'll get in these try-catch methods coming up in a little bit, but not right now. I'm going to create my array, string, username, if you want to use a list, you're more than welcome to use the list. Shout out to my stepdaughter Mackenzie with the Travis Kelce Taylor Swift names there. So there's my array of usernames. I got 5 of them in there, like I say here on my length, to keep them happy. And do a string array. User pin.
So yeah, here's kind of a question for camel naming or any kind of casing.
Yeah.
If there's a word that is normally all capitalized, should you capitalize all of it?
Yeah, most of the time you do.
Alright.
So I guess technically these should be plural since they're an array, but I'm not going to worry too much about that at the moment. And again, these are parallel arrays. That's what we've been working with this whole time. FYI, none of these are my real PIN numbers, so. So I got my arrays declared, initialized, and got data put in them. Got my method signature set up with some parameters in it. And now I'll start coding. So of course when we got arrays, the way we go through arrays is we'll do a for loop. I don't want 5. I'm going to put user name dot length. And why do we use dot length? What's that do for us?
It gives you the entirety of the string.
The
Right.
size of the array,
No, yeah.
the number of elements in an array. So I got that done. So inside there, I will say if name equals username index I and pin is equal to user pin index I. Again, I'm going to use string interpolation just because it's so much easier. And whatever I ends up being, that's what we want to print out to the screen. That's pretty easy, straightforward. We got to put a break in here in case it does find ours, and then we don't want it traversing all the way to the end. So again, what we have is we declared a couple string arrays up at the top. Gave them some 5 pieces of data in there. On an array, what's our index start at? What number? 0, yep. So my name here would be an index of 0. My pin number is an index of 0. So I'll give everybody a minute or two to code that. I hear some typing still going on, so. I think in our lab, if the account number and the pin match up, you print out the user's name and then you print out the account amount. I didn't go that much into depth. Hopefully this will get you started enough or explain enough to you how to get the rest of that done. Everybody pretty close to being done with that? Take that as a yes. So now what we have to do is we got to get our values again. First thing you always want to do is create that variable and go get those values. Both of these are going to be strings, so we don't have to worry about much. So we created a string variable called name that's going to go get that value of our name text box. Got a string called pin number that's going to go get our pin number out of the text box. And since we are using strings, our pin number will technically be a string, even though we're saying number. Then all we gotta do now is make our method call, or as Matt says,
That's Matt the code wizard. Says invoke. Yeah, there you go. The quotations make it really fit.
yeah, says invoke.
Start casting methods.
Invoke the method. I guess I should copy or capitalize that, huh?
Yeah, it is a title.
Yep.
I paid $30 online to get it.
Did you? You got that registered as a
I gave him my social security number.
domain name? You got a domain name set up with that?
Not yet.
MattTheCodeWizard.com.
You just gave my portfolio website.
There you go.
There's the URL.
So we got to call our method, and again we named our method up here login. We're looking for 2 parameters to pass through, so we are passing our name and our PIN number in. Like I said, you can call these anything you want. You just got to make sure the data types are right. Because we're saying passing a string of name, a string PIN number into our login method. Our login method is accepting a parameter of a string of name and a string of PIN. Like I said, it doesn't matter what you call them. So whatever we type in these text boxes will get stored in the name and PIN number. Variables are created. They're going to be passed through as arguments. Technically, they're called arguments when you call the method and pass them. And then the login and our method signature up here, they're called parameters, and it's accepting a string of name and PIN. So whatever we type in these 2 text boxes will get passed up in through here, and then go down. So hopefully now when we run it,
So like, how would we like, so off of that, like when we have a certain person log in, how would we tell the program to basically like change this specific person's, how to change like this specific person's like account number?
that's what the I is there, the index that tells it what to match up with. So if we search through our string, if we loop through our loop here and do our if, and that username that we pass through here, if you look, if the username we pass through here, if this matches the index that we set up here, that matches our index, those 2 will match, that will work. Same with the PIN number. We pass that PIN number in here. If our PIN and the index both match, then it'll print my name I out. And if you want, let me add.
So like when we like deposit money, like how do we, does it like just set like the variable as that person basically, so you can change? Like if it does, like if this person logs in, make, I don't know, like this variable like bound to this person.
You could do it that way.
That might work with like if statements.
Yeah, let me get you a good example, or make sure I answer your question properly for you. Like I said, coding should be done now. Run my code. We'll do Travis Kelsey. It's another shout out to Mackenzie. 8787. Welcome Travis Kelsey. Taylor Swift. Mackenzie, 1989. Taylor Swift. So you can see, and like I said, what we do is we create our method signature here, give it an access modifier value private. We're not returning anything, so it's going to be a void. Give our method a name login. Method names start with capitals and are Pascal cased. We're passing in two parameters, a string called name and a string called pin. We loop through our array. We use that dot length to get the size of our array so we know how many times to loop through. We check, see the name that we enter equals the username in our array by the index. Same with the pin. If it matches and it finds it, it prints it out for us. If it doesn't, it asks us to use the correct name or pin. And let's actually see that. So I'll put Taylor Kelsey 8789, and it should break. Please enter correct name and or pin because it's not finding it because it's not in there. And then again we go down to our button click event, and that is another method. As we see, its access modifier is private, return data type is void because it's not returning anything. Name of the button click, because we have naming convention, that's why it's lowercase and not technically uppercase there. Create two variables. The first one we declare as a string data type, give it a name of name. We assign it the value of the text box that we called name. Second string we call pin number, assign it the value of that pin number text box, our name text box and our pin text box. Then we make the method call, or as Matt the code wizard says, we invoke the method. We pass technically the arguments if the code wizard.
I'll allow it.
All right. So since we're doing the method call and we're passing them in, technically it's called the arguments. You can still call them parameters. They kind of get interchanged. It doesn't matter. So we call our method, which is login. We're passing in a string called name and a string called pin number. Our method is looking for a string. It assigns it the name of name, and a string assigns it the name of pin. So even though we call ours down here, let me drag this down a little bit further so we can see more of the code. Even though we call it name and pin number, it just renames them up here, but it keeps the value that we're passing through to it, and then it runs our code.
I'm too lazy to look it up in the book, but wasn't like the thing with like parameters and arguments, you call them, I think they said semantically like parameters are what you put in the method, and then arguments are like what you pass through it, like when you call it.
Yeah, the method
Something
call.
like that,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So like the method call down here,
That would technically be an argument.
the argument,
Yeah.
yep. And then up here is technically the parameter because it goes with our declaring the method and
Yeah,
the
it's like
method
setting
signature.
the parameter for the method.
You have issues over there, Gavin?
Yeah, my file is underlined.
If I want to log out of this, I could create another method. Private void log out. And we shouldn't have to pass anything back through here. Put our curly brackets for our method body, and then we'll do text box name
I'm so lost.
dot text equals string empty text pin text string empty. And then if we want, we can call this in here. see if that will clear our text boxes when we run our code. And actually, I probably should clear my label later on, but you can see it gets rid of my text boxes, clear out. So when you do a log out, you just clear everything out kind of in that manner.
So where did you unlock that,
I just called my text boxes and gave them a value of empty string or string.empty. Since technically they're strings.
how would the program know that they're not just gonna start, they're not gonna add like money to an account?
When you do a log out,
Yeah.
your log out, you'll just take your text box and set it to empty string and it should get rid of everything.
Run that again, did you learn it already?
Yeah, I can do it again. So, and more than likely, I should clear out my result text down there eventually, but just doing this in the example. Taylor Swift for Mackenzie, 1989.
Then what was the log out?
That was the logout I just did there. And what you do is you just create your method called logout. And all you're going to do is set all your text boxes to string.empty, or you can do it like that and just say nothing inside the string. So now if I run it again, it still clears it out just because it's putting an empty string. That's technically an empty string there. And this is just saying string.empty. So you'd probably have what a withdraw, a text.withdraw, whatever you call it. Dot text, and mine's going to be mad because I don't have any variable name that. And then you have a text deposit dot text. And then you got some labels. You'll probably have to do your labels. Name goes here dot text and set that string to empty. Label another label name dot text equals set it to a blank string, or you can do string empty. Either way, they both work. Empty string, string.empty.
I have a question. Have you done like the deposit and withdraw already?
I'm not doing that on here. I was just kind of showing the login kind of part. I know some people are kind of struggling with the login, so I decided to kind of show you how that worked with using the array, kind of like we did in chapter 8.
I need help with the withdraw.
And then I know some people were kind of confused about the logout, so seeing as that was quick and easy, I threw that on there.
Let me know when you finish this.
All right, you'll be the first one I let know. So that's kind of a quick login method there. If you want, we can take a 10-minute break and come back. If not, I can hurry up and code this last one out, and then we can start labs and you can take a break or do whatever. Anybody have preference? Go ahead and get it going. Run that beautiful bean footage. So I created, I don't want a new project. I want to go up to my solution, method examples 202 projects, right click on that. Do an add new project. We're going to use another Windows Forms application, .NET Framework. Next. I'll call this, I don't know, adding average example. So this one here, I'm going to pass a couple parameters, 3 parameters in. And it's kind of a longer way to do it, but I just want to make sure you kind of see what's going on and hopefully understand it. And then I'll return a data type on this one since we haven't been returning data types. And then hopefully that'll help clarify a few things for you, and then I'll turn you loose on these labs. So I'm going to put 3 numbers in, so I want 3 text boxes. Put my button on. Couple labels. So kind of layout there. I'll go ahead and change my labels and get those set up. My semicolon's not showing up there. Oh well. Or my colon, I should say. Text box. So there's the layout there. I'm gonna enter 3 numbers.
What did you have your 2 labels at the bottom for?
I'm going to display a sum and an average down
Okay.
there. So sum was one of them and average was the other. So everybody kind of got that coded out? Need me to wait a second or?
I'm all set.
How you doing over there, Jack? You all right?
Yeah.
All right. So double click my calculate button, get that button click event wired up for us. So first thing I'm going to do is I'll add the numbers up. So let's just go ahead and get our numbers out of our text boxes real quick. I'm calling everything a double because I am going to average the numbers so I don't have to worry about losing my decimal or anything. And that's one thing in the labs I've noticed is if you're going to average something out, you're more than likely want to make sure you cover in case they use a decimal. And a lot of people used an int, and so it didn't return the exact answer back it should have. Like when I'd put in my test examples or my test cases in there, my average would come up to 82.5 all the time. But people that used an int because they didn't program it for a decimal would lose that 0.5 and it would just come up as 82 as an average.
Which, in the real world, that would come down to like precision of accuracy, right?
Yes, it could cause some big problems. And so some people might have lost points for that. Text number 1 dot text. We have to convert these to doubles again because we're using text boxes to get these values. They come in as a string, but we want them as doubles. And I'll let IntelliSense do some of this for me just to save us some time. So there's me getting my values out of the text boxes. I will go ahead and start coding my method here now. And the first one I'm going to do is a private. And we are returning something this time. So instead of void,
Double.
yeah, we're going to use double since that's kind of what we've been using. So we don't have to worry about converting anything. And I'm going to pass in a double. Call it A double. Call it B. And then finally a third one. And call it C. And again, like I said, we can call these anything we want. Down here we're calling them num1, num2, number 3. And they'll get passed in, but when they come up here, they'll pick up the same value but just change names. So don't let that confuse you if it's declared differently in your button click compared to what your method signature shows. So we could return A, B, and C, or A, B, yeah, they're multiplying C, but I'm going to do it a little bit different. And I'm just going to do double and call it the sum, and then have it equal A plus B plus C. I'm going to have my label display that. And we could put the sum to string if we want to. And actually, I think I will. I could use string interpolation here. And then we have to return something. You can see sum is still angry up here with the red squiggly under it. That's because we're not returning anything yet. And it says you need to have a return since we said we have a return data type there, that double. And so what are we going to return on this more than likely?
Sum.
The sum. That's the value we want to return. So that's quick and easy. We got that coded out. Let's make our method call for it. So I'm going to do something called double. Give it a value of total. And then call this method here. And we're passing num1, num2, num3 in it. So then when we look at this, we declare a variable called double, give it a name of total. We're assigning it this method sum 1, 2, and 3. We pass that num1, num2, num3 from our text boxes up into our method. That would be considered like our num1, num2, and num3, but we just call them A, B, and C instead. Declare a double called the sum. Take those values we're passing in. Technically num1, num2, num3, that gets changed to A, B, and C. Gonna add those. Put them in this variable called the sum. We print it out to the label, and then we're returning it. Well, because we're returning it, the way we have this set up down here, is this method, it's called sum, now takes this value returning and stores it in this total variable. So now to show how we're going to use that, we got to create another method, and it's going to be a double, and we're going to call it average. We're going to do double, if I can spell it, total, and double divide by. Average isn't happy here because we're declaring a return type of double, but we don't have a return statement in. So if we just put return in here, if we just put a return, it makes the average happy, but return's not because we're not actually returning anything. So we can put our values in here. So we're going to take eventually that total and pass it back through our method. So we can do like total divide equals divide by, and we're going to return total. So now we want to make our method call. We'll make it a double. We'll call it average. Now we need to call our method again. And our method up here says we got to pass in a double and another double. We're going to pass in total as our one double. And we're getting that total from our method called sum that's returning the sum. This total value is holding this return value of the sum. So that's what we're going to be passing in. Whatever this total ends up being from our method called sum is going to be held in this total, and we're passing that through. And we're going to tell it we want to use 3 to divide by. That's not a very good way to do it because we're hard coding that 3 in there, telling it to use 3 all the time when we divide. If we're trying to get an average, that's not. I mean, we could put 4 in here, we could put 5 in here, we could put whatever number we want. As long as it's a double, this divide by will take it, and I can show you that here in a minute. So now that we're calling our average method down here, we can do, and we're not printing it out anywhere, we can do a label average dot text equals average to string, or we could do string interpolation again here if we wanted to. And actually let's do string interpolation here since we're doing that to string up in the sum average or sum method. Oops, I managed to hit debugger. What I'm going to do label text is string interpolation, and I'm just going to splat the average in there. So we could either do toString like it is up here in our sum method, or we can just print it out. This average by returning it, our total, and putting it in this average variable. Now we're just printing out average to show our average. So now if we run this, we'll put 2, 5, and an 8. That should give us 15 if my math is somewhat decent. Calculate, our sum is 15, and our average is 5. So if we wanted to, because we hard coded what we're dividing in by, we could do a 2 and run it again, and we'll use the same numbers, a 2, a 5, and an 8. We calculate that, and you can see we get 7.5. 15 divided by 2 is 7.5. So all we're doing is just hard coding this in. We could have put a text box in or something and told them to give us a divide by number and just passed it through. But just to kind of show you some different ways you can pass some of this stuff in through arguments and parameters, I just want to kind of show you that. So if we do it by 5 and use those same numbers, a 2, a 5, and an 8, that gives us 3. So all we're saying here is we get this total from here, which we get from the sum's return value. It holds that return value in the total here. Whatever that number is, we plug into here for our average parameter or argument, which up here uses total, and then we have a divide by we need. Well, we're just telling it whatever to divide by here. We tell it 1, it should give 15 back as a result. 2, 5, 8, 15, and 15. Like I said, if we want to create a variable, a text box, put a variable in it or something like that, we could do that and just pass the variable name through. We're just kind of hard coding this and telling it what to divide by ourselves. So fairly easy, straightforward one. This one's using return data type, so we used voids before, so I just want to give you an example of return. And an example of how to hard code a parameter in there instead of using a variable. Any questions, comments, concerns about any of these? They're pretty easy, straightforward. Welcome to the development world there, Gavin. So I'll go ahead and wrap that up. We'll open labs. I'll push this out to YouTube eventually today, and you can use that as guidance for either the test coming up